Good evening. Thanks for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shereen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you tonight. Inflation eases in December to 5.7%. A sharp drop in food inflation led by a fall in vegetable prices keep inflation below the RBI's 6% threshold for the second month running. India's factories are firing once again as industrial output in November accelerates by over 7%, beating estimates. Inflation is easing in the US as well. Consumer price index declines by 0.1% on a monthly basis. Wall Street gives a thumbs up. Infosys beats estimates in Q3, revises the full-year revenue growth guidance upwards, maintains the outlook on margins. Deal pipeline remains healthy at over $3 billion. HCL Tech becomes the third IT company after Infosys and TCS to beat estimates in Q3. HCL Tech leads the pack with 5% constant currency revenue growth. Infosys pips TCS on the revenue growth rate. Crude oil prices currently at a one-week high on the back of China reopening and concerns of supply from Russia. Top brokerages including Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley expect Brent prices to touch the $100 to $110 mark. The World Health Organization says two cough syrups manufactured by Noida-based Marion Biotech are substandard. Uzbekistan government claims these medicines were linked to the death of 19 children. After Maiden Pharma, this is the second product alert issued by WHO on cough syrups made by Indian companies in the last 3 months. National Company Law Tribunal in Mumbai clears the merger between India's top two multiplex chains PVR and Inox. Sources say a verbal order was pronounced today and a written order is likely after 15 days. Former RBI Governor Y.V. Reddy dismisses concerns over twin deficits, says the current account deficit does not pose any danger immediately, believes India's near-term growth prospects are bright. Also adds policymakers must keep a constant vigil to ensure growth benefits people.
आपदा आना एक प्राकृतिक आपदा है और किसी एक कारण से आपदा नहीं आई है.
Uttarakhand's Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami announces a 45 crore rupee rehabilitation package for families impacted by the land subsidence in Joshimath, refers to the incident as a natural disaster. Home Minister Amit Shah chairs a high-level meeting at his residence. Senior ministers and officials were present. Electric vehicles, alternate fuel and sustainable mobility remains the focus on day 2 of the Auto Expo. Maruti Suzuki targets the SUV market with the launch of the Jimny and Fronx. Tata Motors showcases 26 products across categories. Well, let's start with what was double delight for the economy. Inflation is on the mend and growth engines are firing. Inflation in December easing to 5.72%. This was lower than the reading in November and for the second consecutive month. Inflation is below the RBI's threshold of 6%. A sharp fall in food prices, especially vegetables, led to the drop in prices. Industrial output in November accelerated by 7%. This is the highest rate of growth in 5 months. Manufacturing, mining and capital goods sectors reported healthy growth. Lata is here with a snapshot of the macro data. Lata, both on inflation and IIP, good news coming in.
Yes, it's a pleasing set of numbers as far as macros are concerned. Inflation number at 5.72, far less than the CNBC-TV18 poll. But I think the more important part is now we have the October, November, December numbers. And if you look at the average for the quarter, it works out to 6.1. The Reserve Bank, as recently as December, had forecast that number at 6.6%. So a good half a percentage lower than what the Reserve Bank had forecast in terms of CPI inflation. And it's not just the headline CPI, which is at 5.72. Food inflation also down to 4.19 compared to 4.67 in the previous month. This month also, that is December, the expectation was things would stay there. The expectation was that vegetables would fall, but cereals and pulses and milk could be higher. The pleasant part is vegetables is much lower than expected. It's about a 12% fall month on month itself. And of course, year on year also a very sharp fall. Plus, the cereals have not gone up as much as we thought. Pulses are a very modest 3% year-on-year growth, and fruit as well, just coming in 2% higher. All told, the composite picture in food is extremely pleasing. The only fly in the ointment is the core inflation coming in at 6.1%. This is, of course, gold prices are higher and services prices generally a bit higher. That perhaps is the only thing that will hold back the Reserve Bank. But there is now a general expectation that at best there is one rate hike or perhaps a pause in the month of February. So expect some positivity in the bond markets. The other positive is actually the IIP number. The poll was expecting only about 2.7%. There were other polls at 3 and 4%, but no one was prepared for a 7.1% rise in the industrial output for November. It's been an all-round good performance, with electricity coming in 12.7% higher. The core sector gave us a different picture. Manufacturing coming in 6% higher. Mining coming in over 9% higher. And if you looked at the use-based classification, consumer non-durables, which has been sulking for a better part, coming in almost 9% higher year on year. Consumer durables as well over 5% higher. Capital goods 20% higher. So it's been an all-round positive performance on the industrial output. Absolutely good news on macros. Inflation lower than expected, growth better than expected.
Lata, many thanks for joining us. And it's not just India. Inflation is easing in the US as well. The consumer price index contracted by 0.1% in December, along expected lines. This is the biggest monthly decline since the pandemic. But despite this decline, the annual rate of inflation remains at 6.5%. However, this was the smallest annual increase since October of 2021. Wall Street sharing the data. Experts believe the US Fed is unlikely to end monetary tightening in the near term. Steve Leisman here with more on the US inflation print. Steve.
You have this rise in the owner's equivalent rent number. It's actually up on the year over year, and that pushed up energy less services, the core energy, services less energy, sorry about that. That pushed up the core services number. And I think what's happening, and Mike was right on this, is the market is looking through that. And they're saying rents in the real world that we know are coming down, and that's going to filter into the index in the months ahead. The other thing I want to say, I want to rise in defense of the much beleaguered headline index. It is down 0.1%. Everybody says, let's look through it. Let's take out this. Let's take out that. Let's take out everything. Let's go back. It was the surge in fuel prices that created the double-digit inflation that freaked everybody out. Now that it's coming down, why are we ignoring it? It doesn't make all that much sense. I get that the Fed looks through it and they don't use it, but if it's the headline number and gas prices that creates the expectations for inflation that the Fed is so worried about, let's not be so quick to dismiss and when it goes negative.
Steve Leisman, many thanks for joining us. On to the day's market action. Markets ending the day lower, but they were sharply off their intraday lows. The Nifty and the Sensex closed 0.25% in the red. The Nifty is now at 17,858. The broader markets did underperform the benchmarks, though. Well, the big tech earnings, Infosys reporting a beat on its top line in Q3. Margins a slight miss. However, the biggest takeaway is that the company has revised its FY23 revenue growth guidance higher from 15 to 16% to 16 to 16.5%. Rima's here with more. Rima, take us through the key highlights from the Infosys Q3 report card. A strong showing.
Thanks so much for that. It's a very strong showing from Infosys this time. A revenue beat, a guidance upgrade, very strong deal wins. But there is a bit of a margin miss. But on the whole, it's a good quarter. So let's tell you about the numbers. Revenue growth has come in ahead of expectations, 2.2% in dollar terms. Constant currency revenue growth has come in at 2.4%. EBIT margins are flat at 21.5%, and this is despite 40 basis points benefit due to the rupee depreciation. In fact, both Infi and TCS have reported a revenue beat and a margin miss. But if I compare the revenue performance, Infosys growth rates are stronger than that of TCS. The big positive was the fact that revenue guidance was revised higher. It now stands at 16 to 16.5% constant currency revenue growth for this year, which compares with the 15 to 16% revenue growth that they'd earlier guided for. In fact, every single quarter of this year, Infosys has gone ahead and upped the guidance. The deal wins are also very strong. Deal wins, the highest in the last 8 quarters, have come in at $3.3 billion.
So on the guidance, we've had a very strong large deals win for Q3, and we've had very strong growth in the quarter, 13.7%. Keeping those factors in mind, and also looking at the points where some of our industries we are seeing a different economic environment. For example, in financial services, in mortgages or investment banking, in telco, in high-tech, retail, so on. Keeping both, all of those factors in mind, we've increased the guidance. Specifically on Q4, we don't provide a quarterly view of that, we only have an annual guidance.
That's right, but the implication is because you revised up the guidance for the rest of the year, will we see a bit of a muted growth? And also, if you could comment on, the EBIT margin, you expect to be at the lower end of what you guided?
On the Q4, so first, with the change in the guidance, typically Q3 and Q4 are seasonally weak quarters for Infosys in any case. So those factors still continue. On the margin, we had a very good operating margin in Q3 at 21.5. We've kept the guidance, which was narrowed to 21 to 22.
Yeah.
We've kept it at that level, and we've also I made the statement in the comments earlier. It'll be at the lower end of the guidance.
Well, that's Infosys' Salil Parekh, and HCL Tech has become the third IT company after Infosys and TCS to beat estimates in Q3. HCL reporting a constant currency growth rate of 5% sequentially, which is the highest amongst its peers. And unlike Infosys and TCS, HCL has delivered on margins as well. On a year-on-year basis, the revenue growth rate at Infosys is the highest at nearly 14%. Both HCL and TCS have also reported growth rates of over 13%. Here's C. Vijayakumar, the CEO of HCL Tech, with his outlook.
Traditionally, some of the furloughs have kind of extended into the January month, especially in some APAC markets. So we expect to see that trend this year as well. But it's all baked into our guidance of 13.5% to 14% full year, full business, and 16 to 16.5% on the services business.
Good results there coming in from the tech majors. Oil prices peaking to a one-week high on the back of China reopening its economy and concerns that supply of Russian oil could be hampered further. But that's not all. Top brokerages, including Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, have indicated that Brent crude oil prices could hit $110 a barrel this year. The World Economic Forum has released its annual Global Risk Report, which identifies the top threats for the world over the next decade. The report highlighted cost of living as the most severe threat in the next 2 years. Natural disasters, geo-economic confrontation also feature in the top 3 short-term risks. Climate change tops the biggest long-term risk. The list also includes biodiversity loss and ecosystem collapse as major risks. Here's a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. The National Company Law Tribunal has given its clearance to the PVR Inox merger. Sources told us that a verbal order was pronounced today. A written order is likely in the next fortnight or so. Both stocks closed with gains of 3%. Nimesh joins us now with more. Nimesh.
In a CNBC-TV18 exclusive, what we understand from sources that the Mumbai NCLT has today finally approved the merger between Inox and PVR. In an oral order, the judge has pronounced the merger. Now, the written order is expected in the next 15 to 20 days. Now, we all know the merger ratio. It's basically 3 shares of PVR for 10 shares of Inox. After the written order is through, over the next couple of months, the merged entity will emerge. Now, what will the merged entity look like? The merged entity will have a network of more than 1,600 screens pan-India, and the merged entity is aiming to add at least 200 screens every year. Now, both the promoters will have 2 board seats in the merged entity. The Inox promoter will have a slightly higher stake of 16.67% in the merged entity, whereas the PVR promoters will own close to 10.6% stake in the merged entity. Now, the merged entity will have a market share of 40% across the 7 big cities. So that's the big conglomerate which will emerge after the merger. But in the news, today the Mumbai NCLT has approved the final merger between Inox and PVR.
Nimesh, many thanks. Shares of Paytm's parent company 197 Communications tumbled in trade after 2 crore shares worth 1,100 crore rupees were sold via block deal. Sources say Ant Financial, an Alibaba affiliate, may be the seller. The stock down 6%. Shares of Nykaa's parent dipped nearly 6%. This after reports said that 1.4 crore shares worth 217 crores exchanged hands in a large trade today. The name of the seller has not been disclosed. The World Health Organization has issued a product alert for 2 cough syrups manufactured by Noida-based company Marion Biotech. Now, remember, the Uzbekistan government had linked the deaths of 18 children to the syrup made by Marion Biotech. This is the second warning over cough syrups made by an Indian company that the WHO has issued in the last 3 months. Ekta joins us now with more on the WHO action and what this means for India's pharma companies. Ekta, Marion Biotech not even responding to the show cause notice.
The WHO has put out an alert indicating the 2 cough medicines in question, Ambronol syrup and Doc 1 Max, are substandard or contaminated. which means the two drugs do not meet quality standards or specifications. WHO has indicated the lab analysis of samples of both products undertaken by the National Quality Control Lab in Uzbekistan has found both products containing unacceptable amounts of diethylene glycol and or ethylene glycol. WHO goes on to say that Marion Biotech has till date not provided guarantees to WHO on the safety and the quality of these products. Both these products may have marketing authorizations in other countries in the region. It could have been distributed via informal markets as well, warns the WHO. Remember, this is the second product alert put out by the WHO on cough syrups manufactured by Indian companies in just the past 3 odd months. The earlier product alert was for 4 cough syrups manufactured by Made in Pharma, which again allegedly contained the contaminants diethylene glycol and or ethylene glycol, and was linked to the deaths of over 65 children in Gambia. It is important, however, to note with regards to the Made in Pharma case, the Indian government has said that the 4 cough syrups manufactured by Made is compliant with norms. For Marion Biotech, the latest is that the UP government has suspended the manufacturing license of the company.
Ekta, many thanks for joining us. Marion Biotech has not responded, as we pointed out, to the show cause notice issued by the UP government. The license stands suspended. The National Company Law Tribunal has adjourned Torrent Investments' plea against a likely second round of e-auction for Reliance Capital. Torrent has argued that the second auction is a brazen attempt, I'm quoting, to wipe out what transpired in the previous round. Remember, Torrent was declared the highest bidder after the 21st December auction. The government has stepped up its vigilance against toys that are allegedly not compliant with the Bureau of Indian Standards. Over 18,000 toys were seized after raids at 44 locations. It's been found that most of the seized toys are imports from China. Toys being sold in India will now need to mandatorily carry BIS certification. Axis Bank is likely to revise its pact with Max Life Insurance. Sources say the bank is likely to propose a price of 85 rupees a share for the additional 7% stake in Max Life. However, the final decision on accepting the proposal on revised value rests with the IRDAI. It is day 2 of the Grand Auto Show and car makers unveiled their pipeline. Maruti Suzuki unveiled the compact SUV, the Fronx, and the off-roader, the Jimny, which will go on sale by mid-2023. Tata Motors showcased the electric vehicle Harrier SUV. Other brands like Cummins, Ultraviolette, Lexus, and Liger also revealed their offerings. Parikshit Luthra and Danish Anand get us all the highlights.
Biggest crowds today are at the Maruti Pavilion here at the Auto Expo, and that's because the company has launched the 5-door off-roader, the Jimny, and the compact SUV, the Fronx. These two SUVs will be in the price range of approximately 8 to 10 lakhs as a starting price. The official price has not yet been announced, but why are these two SUVs so important for Maruti Suzuki? Let's find out.
The SUV space in India is growing very, very fast. And we understand that we need more and more appealing products for the young and vibrant Indian consumers.
Also grabbing a lot of eyeballs at the Auto Expo is Tata Motors. They showcased not just the Avinya, which will launch in 2025, but also the Harrier EV and the Sierra EV for the first time. All these electric vehicles and a set of passenger cars will launch in the next 2 to 3 years.
The base is going to be big, and therefore next year I would expect that it will be just a single-digit growth as compared to, say, 25% growth that we are going to see this financial year.
Luxury car maker Lexus has unveiled its range of electric and hybrid vehicles here at the Auto Expo, including the futuristic LF30, a vehicle that can go from 0 to 100 in just 3.8 seconds and has a top speed of 200 kilometers per hour. My colleague Danish Anand caught up with the company's president, Naveen Soni, on Lexus India plans, product lineup, and the importance of India as a market for Lexus in Asia Pacific.
As far as future products is concerned, since we have already defined a global direction that we will be moving towards all electric, battery electric future by 2035. So towards that, we are presenting two concept cars which are on display, the LFZ and the LC30, which is available for consumers' understanding.
Well, that's the Auto Expo action. We will head into a break, but up next, meet the hawkers outside the RBI headquarters in Mumbai who are part of the Digital Rupee pilot project. A special report up next. Well, here's another big newsmaker this evening. Former RBI Governor Y.V. Reddy is optimistic about the Indian economy in the short term. He's dismissed concerns over twin deficits, says the current account deficit does not pose any danger immediately. He also believes India's near-term growth prospects are bright, adding that policymakers must keep a constant vigil to ensure growth benefits people.
Current account deficit definitely influences the medium-term view, because it's not the current account deficit which determines the exchange market. The exchange market are determined by capital account, capital account transactions. So short-term fluctuations are entirely due to. So current account deficit may not be built into day-to-day movements. Current account deficit will be built into structural. And also the effectiveness of current account deficit in transmission to the exchange is highly diluted because less for us, supply chain, etc. That's one. And therefore what we have a situation is that current account should be a worry when people assess our fundamentals, but not for market volatility.
That's the former RBI Governor Y.V. Reddy. Union Home Minister Amit Shah held a high-level meeting on the crisis in Uttarakhand's Joshimath. More than 700 buildings in the town have developed cracks and more than 200 buildings have been marked unsafe to live. Hundreds of people have been evacuated and moved to safer areas. Joshimath is the gateway to the famous pilgrimage sites like Badrinath and is facing a major challenge due to land subsidence. The Uttarakhand Chief Minister is promised a 45 crore rupee rehabilitation package for those affected. But this crisis raises several questions around development and the ecological trade-offs that policymakers make. Environmentalist Sunita Ranayan believes Joshimath is a well-engineered calamity.
These are the youngest mountain ranges in the world. They are ecologically very fragile, very vulnerable, made even more vulnerable because of climate change today. And we have a situation where we are building hydroelectric projects literally back to back. We are doing unplanned construction without any thinking about what would it mean for water supply, for the sewage that flows and weakens the mountains. We are doing roads. We need to build roads, but we need to build roads keeping in mind that every cost will need to be spent in making sure that it doesn't make the Himalayas more vulnerable. So we just don't, we cannot talk about this as destiny, but yes, I would agree with the minister. Let's talk about the future, which really means let's not keep making the same mistake again.
And before we wrap, the RBI's Digital Rupee project, the pilot is currently underway and has a few unlikely participants, a tea vendor, a fruit seller, and another who owns a sugarcane juice stall, all part of the pilot project. All these three men run their businesses just outside of the RBI headquarters in Mumbai. Zinia Baria met these hawkers and reports on the progress of the pilot so far.
We are outside RBI's Mumbai office at Mint Road today to talk about RBI's key pilot project on the use of e-Rupee, also known as Central Bank Digital Currency, CBDC. The RBI has launched a limited test of the retail digital rupee for specific use cases from the 1st of November 2022. And the RBI has cast its net for use cases far and wide, spanning 15,000 people across Mumbai, New Delhi, Bengaluru and Bhubaneswar. But the net starts in its own backyard. Bachche Lal Sahani, who sells fruits in the lane behind the RBI headquarters, is one of the testers.
जिनके पास सीबीडीसी मिला है आरबीआई वाले के लिए और पर्सनल खास करके, जब ये आरबीआई से सक्सेसफुल हो जाएंगे तो और भी पब्लिक को, अदर बैंक वाले को मिलेंगे, हर पब्लिक को मिलेंगे और फिर वो उन्होंने गूगल जैसा इस पे रिचार्ज करेंगे, स्कैनिंग करके और फिर पेमेंट करेंगे.
Bachche Lal Sahani is not the only one who has been roped into testing the retail CBDC in this area. Shri Bholanath Tea House, which stands right next door, is also a participant, and the reviews so far suggest, pardon the pun, that this could be their cup of tea.
ये रुपीस बहुत अच्छा है, वॉलेट की तरह चलता है, जैसे पॉकेट नहीं भी हो तो चलता है, प्लस मोबाइल में ये सेटअप पूरा कर सकते हैं. मोबाइल खो भी जाए तो इसका वो नहीं है कि नहीं कुछ कारण मतलब पैसे कहीं चले जाए, कुछ भी हो जाए तो वो टेंशन नहीं है.
Apart from secure transactions, one big plus point for the CBDC is that though it's in the form of digital token, it represents legal tender and is issued for the same denomination as paper currency and coins. At the moment, the app is being used by a restricted group comprising of both customers and businesses. But once successful, it will be rolled out for the use of the general public, by both person-to-person and person-to-merchant transactions being possible. The testing phase has 8 banks participating, and this list too will grow over time. In Mumbai, Zinia Baria.
Well, that is the pilot project, and the participants that include vendors right outside the RBI headquarters in Mumbai. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks so much for watching. Do stay tuned. News continues on the other side.